This graph shows the age distribution of employees at Los Alamos in the last months of the Second World War. You can see they were mostly young, especially the scientific workers. How were these people recruited? Well, what happened is that a representative of the project would interview them on the college campuses where they were located. And they would tell them that they were needed by their country for a secret project. When they asked what the secret project was, they were told that they couldn't know that yet. When they asked where it would be carried out, they were told that they couldn't know that yet. The only thing they were told was that if they succeeded in this secret project, it would end the war. Now this graph shows an objective measure of the catastrophe of the Second World War. You can see during the 20th century two large peaks in death rates from war. The first was from 1914 to 1918, and the second was from 1939 to 1945. During those 6 years of the Second World War, on average, 1,000 people died every hour of every day. A total of 50 million people died in that war, and it affected nearly every family in the U.S. We didn't have the current situation of a paid military. Basically, these were conscripts. These people were drafted. They were required to go and fight for as long as they might be needed. Their families suffered. Their loved ones suffered. Everyone in the country was suffering to a degree. And by the summer of 1945, the effort of preparing for the invasion of Japan, which this map shows was scheduled to happen in its first stage, the beginning of November 1945, and its second stage in March of 1946, just preparing for this was costing the country $250 million per day. The total cost of the Manhattan Project was $2 billion. That's 8 days of war. When the bombs were dropped, it took less than a week for the Japanese to decide to surrender. Here's a headline from the Time showing the situation. All of the people who were involved in creating and dropping the atomic bombs on Japan were considered to be heroes at that time. And for some time afterward. It was only about a year later, at the end of August of 1946, that all changed. And what changed it was an article that took up the entire issue of the New Yorker magazine that month, written by John Hersey, entitled Hiroshima. It was the personal story of 6 survivors of that terrible raid. And for the first time, it gave the American people a chance to look at the atomic bomb from the bottom, from the victim's eye view, and it horrified people. And the scientists and engineers who had been treated as heroes when the Japanese surrendered were stigmatized forever after as being vicious murderers.